Hi everyone, and to this lovely, exciting workshop. I'm so excited. I've been prepping for a while for this. I did run this workshop in January, but I've shifted it and changed it slightly with the same aim, but probably just a bit more experience, a bit more expertise, and a bit of a refinement, let's say. So before I start, make sure you've got a cuppa, make sure you've got a pen and paper, or like a Word document or notes on your phone, because we want to take notes, because I want you guys to actually take action. We're going to set up an action plan for you today to up-level your confidence and for you to feel your best. And that means that you need to make personalised notes. And I can help you do that. I can be answering questions as we go because I've got you on my phone and I can see your comments. By the way, it might take a couple of minutes for the comments to come through on my phone. Hello, hi Victoria. So please don't be offended if I'm just ignoring a comment of yours. It just takes a while because Facebook is my friend, that's what I'm telling myself, but Facebook does take its time with these things. So if we're all ready to go, let's get stuck in. So up level your confidence. Who am I? I am Laura. I am the owner of Mindful Confidence, and my company is all about feeling confident in yourself, doing the inner work, reshifting your mindset to support yourself, but doing it in a gentle and compassionate way. When I first started coaching, I found it really overwhelming in the online space with personal development and self-help, that there was so much like badass kind of like in your face vibes and really pushing personal growth in quite an aggressive way, I found personally. And I found it really overwhelming. And so I'm shifting my kind of combination of, I'm a psychology geek at heart, you know, my university degree was in psychology. I'm all about neuroscience and mental health and all that jazz. But there's also a big part of me that's a big old yogi, and mindfulness is such a big part of my life. And really, I'm combining the two because when you live mindfully, you have a connection with yourself, and that in turn gives you confidence because you have that relationship with yourself, that trust with yourself. And so my coaching approach is all about building that relationship with yourself and really returning to who you always were authentically, but maybe along the way you've had to sort of shift things and alter to try and please others, or just out of survival, or just because you were so busy. And it's really about returning to who you are, not changing who you are, but really just coming back to who you always were. So that is me in a nutshell. I live in Bali. I've got a dog. He's lovely. His name's Mr. Ted. You might hear him chime up in it because every time a scooter comes past our house, he thinks it's the worst thing in the world. So apologies if there is a bark attack. But he is snoozing next to me now, so fingers crossed. So that's a brief introduction of me, but let's talk about you. Now, obviously, is not an easy time to feel our most confident. And I created this slide in January, and I'd still argue it's relevant right now. I'd say generally over the last couple of years, there's been so much else to be focusing on. Confidence has just, fallen down the priority list, really, hasn't it? And I think actually now, with things kind of returning to some sort of normality, there's also a lot of uncertainty and anxiety that comes with these social situations that we're re-entering, and maybe lifestyle shifts that we're like rediscovering, and we're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. Who am I? Who was I pre-pandemic? So there's a lot going on for us to think about in terms of confidence. And I conducted a questionnaire and ran some research because I told you I'm a psychology geek at the beginning of the year, and I found that 73% of my audience, my community, felt like their mental health had been affected since the beginning of the pandemic. And I would probably argue it's actually higher. I'd be surprised if it wasn't higher, because we've all had to deal with so much. There's a big overwhelm of information that has been ongoing. It's been impossible to move away from. And that affects how you feel about yourself too, in turn. It really does. There's a lot of fear that comes with this situation. And as I'm going to discuss a bit later on, fear is what we need to be paying attention to when it comes to confidence. And also I ran a confidence quiz, and the average confidence score for my quiz was -4, and that was telling me, it wasn't even that people were feeling like neutrally confident. Actually, there was a big roller coaster up and downness in terms of personal confidence. And that, for me, isn't good enough. I want people to be always feeling a kind of minimum threshold of personal self-confidence. That means, okay, we all, of course, have up and down days, but even on the down days, that you have the tools that you need to bring yourself back up again. So it's time to level up, and I want to hear from you. If you're here live in the comments, or if you're watching on the replay, please do leave a comment, because on Facebook, all of the comments are timestamped, so I know which part of the video you're referring to. Leave a comment and let me know, what does feeling confident mean to you? I'd be really interested to hear. Have a think about this question, because I don't think it's something that's, a few years ago I'd ever really thought about before, and it's something I always talk about with my coaching clients at the very beginning of our coaching relationship. What does feeling confident mean to you? Is it something temporary? Is it something that's always there? Is it feeling peaceful? Is it feeling excited and bold and courageous? Let me know what kind of adjectives spring to mind when you think about confidence, and I will check the comments when they start coming through. And then I want you to consider, why is self-confidence so important? So what I mean by that is thinking about the impact that self-confidence can have on your life. If you felt more confident, if you always had that minimum threshold of confidence, what difference do you think it could make? Would it affect the actions that you're taking? Would it affect the opportunities that you're being open to? So I think sometimes it's easier to take less responsibility, isn't it? In terms of opportunities, and just to say, well, I tried my hardest and I just never got given a job like that. I just never had that opportunity. Whereas actually, if you were open and less fearful and more confident in your ability, who knows if you could have actually taken more action to have opened up more opportunities for yourself. So I'd love to know what the consequences of feeling more confident could be for you. So, we've got some comments coming through. Lovely. Feeling comfortable to be yourself. I love that. Absolutely, in a nutshell. Yeah, I think comfortable is a really nice adjective, isn't it? It's kind of that gentle, peaceful feeling. Yeah, I really like that. Not being afraid to do the things I want to do and not caring what other people think. Yeah, other people have such a big role in our confidence, don't they? Yeah, totally, Dominique. And being able to show up authentically as me. Yes, absolutely. Confidence and freedom to be silly. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Not afraid to speak up, knowing your mind. Oh, guys, I've got a bit of goosebumps, because this is my topic. This is like what I love to talk about. So those comments are absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing. That is amazing. So confidence is like a tire. We need to pump it up regularly. It's not something, unfortunately, that we can just do a bit of work on and then we're done, because life throws us obstacles, and that means that our confidence is tested regularly. That means that we need to be doing this work on an ongoing basis. We need to be working at our mindset. Some people are surprised, I'm a confidence coach, and people are surprised that I kind of use my own resources. Is that weird? I use my own resources that I give to my clients in coaching on an ongoing basis, maybe every few months, maybe every year, or whenever I need it, because I like to do that mindset work. I like to revisit things, because often my answers change over time, and it's really nice to kind of get my mind on track with how I'm feeling about myself and how I've shifted and how my confidence is changing. So we are naturally negative Nancys. I love this saying so much, because people are often really confused about why they're self-sabotaging. Why are all these beliefs entering my mind that are so unhelpful to me, that are so unkind? Surely, if my mind was doing what it was meant to do and supporting me to doing my best, it would be kinder, and it would bring about beliefs that make me feel really courageous and really confident. Well, actually, we're naturally negative Nancys, and we're naturally just full of fear. We're naturally creatures of survival. And that means that our brain sends us these beliefs and these thoughts based on risk factors, based on survival. If something seems out of the ordinary, if something seems new or scary or risky, it's going to try and deter us from doing those things, or at least be very cautious about it. And that's why these unkind beliefs and thoughts can pop up. It's just out of fear. Like I said, we're going to come back to this towards the end of the workshop, because fear is a really, really big part of confidence. Or, the opposite of confidence, I should say. And before we get going, I just want to say we're always doing our best with what we have. If you find yourself kind of beating yourself up as I talk about things that will help you or maybe haven't been helping you along the way, I don't want you to take the approach of, oh, I wish I'd done that sooner, or why do I talk like this to myself, or why am I like this? Please don't beat yourself up about it. We're always doing the best with what we have. Hopefully, after this workshop, you're going to have more information that will help you to be kinder to yourself. That's my aim. Before this workshop, you might not have had those tools, and that's okay. There's no point spending time and energy feeling guilty about how you felt so far, or maybe how you're going to continue afterwards. Who knows? I'm just wanting to let you know that we're always, it's literally a fact, doing our best with what we have. We are creatures of survival. It means that we're negative Nancy's, but it means that we're always trying our best. So let's start off talking about self-compassion, because you are your own best friend. Like I mentioned with my coaching style and kind of overall life philosophy, I believe that confidence really comes from compassion and kindness and gentle mindfulness and connection to yourself. So I want you to think about how you feel about your best friend in life. If I can picture my best friend, I've known her since I was 2. I adore her to pieces. I would do so many things to make sure that she's happy and that she's cared for and that she's healthy and all of the lovely things. And if I compared the relationship I have with myself to the one that I have with my best friend, can I notice any differences? Same for you. Can you notice any contrasts in how you feel about your own best friend compared to how you feel about yourself and the way you treat yourself, the things you say to yourself? And I know that it can be so difficult to think about this and to think about yourself in a loving way, in a caring way, because it's often something that so many of us are detached from, we're so far removed from. But I want you to really be taking this perspective of self-compassion today as we talk about all the different parts of confidence and what makes you you, and treat yourself today, at least for the next hour, as a best friend would. And you will start to notice a big, big difference in your life the more action you take on a best friend basis. I promise that. So here are the 4 pillars of self-confidence that I am going to go through today. So if we imagine general self-confidence as a building, as a structure, these are the 4 pillars that I believe, through the work I've done as a coach, through all of the client work I've done, through speaking to my community, friends, life, I believe that we can break it down into these 4 pillars: body confidence, identity confidence, social confidence, and skill confidence. And today we're going to work out whereabouts we are on each pillar in terms of my very own tier system. I had to bring cake into this somehow, okay? So I want you to imagine the most fabulous cake. Could be a birthday cake, could be just a general celebration cake. And we're going to work in tiers today. I want you to identify where you sit on the pillars of confidence based on my tier system. Don't worry if this sounds confusing. I'm going to talk you through it, but this is how we're going to think about each of these pillars in terms of tiers and where you are right now. The first part of knowing how to kind of feel more confident is recognizing what's holding you back right now and having some more awareness about how you feel about yourself. Breaking it down like this is going to really be able to help you to pinpoint which action steps are going to help you in feeling more confident. Okay, so let's kick it off. We're talking about body confidence first. So here's my tier system. I want you to consider where you might fit in on my tier system in terms of body confidence, okay? So if you are in tier 3, you might be spending a lot of time and energy trying to change how you look. Maybe you spend a lot of time worrying about things that you're going to wear before you leave the house. Maybe you have a lot of very unkind thoughts about your body and how you look. Maybe you feel crippling comparison compared to other people, and you wish, almost on a constant basis that you'd look differently. And that's holding you back from opportunities. It's holding you back from showing up as your best self. That is tier 3. Tier 2 would be you have moments of tier 3. Some days are tier 3, some days aren't. Some days you feel quite neutral about your body. It's kind of like, nah, there are more important things, You do have days where you think, oh gosh, and there are some really horrible thoughts. And some days you feel a little bit better about things. So it's a real up and down. And tier 1, if you're in tier 1, it means that you think pretty neutrally about your body, like you don't spend a lot of time thinking about how you look. / you might also feel really positive about your body. You might celebrate body positivity. You might really enjoy and pay attention and appreciate things about your body. So I'd love to know where you think that you sit on the tier system. Which part of the cake are you currently at? If you don't feel comfortable sharing, I totally understand, but do make a note of it because it's going to help you when we're thinking about action and moving forwards. So body confidence, the first pillar of self-confidence, where do you fall in the tier system? Okay, so we're going to talk through, each of the pillars are going to have a yes and a no list that I'm going to talk you through. And this is where I want you to actually yourself think of an action step for you to take. Depending on where you fit on the tier system, if you are at tier 3 of any of these pillars of self-confidence, I want you to write down an action step. If you're at tier 2, you can maybe make a note of it, but it's not a priority. And if you're in tier 1, it's great. You can make notes, but it's not a priority for you to take an action step today. So the yes list for body confidence is body neutrality. This is something I talk about a lot with my clients because I think a lot of the time we're told to think about loving our bodies and celebrating our bodies. But if you're somebody who's not liked your body for a long time or found it very difficult to feel confident in your body, to ask you to go from here to over here is really, really difficult. So my perspective is, can we meet somewhere in the middle? Can we think that's, it's not bad, it's not good, it's a body? Can we remove any meaning from the body? So for example, thinking about my arm, if I were to think about my body in a negative way, I could say, oh, I don't like this bit here, it doesn't feel very nice, it doesn't look very nice. A body positivity comment would be like, I freaking love this part of my arm, it's so gorgeous and I could just kiss it all day. And body neutrality would be me just saying, this is an arm. I have an arm and it means that I can throw the ball when I go to the beach with my dog. There's no, positive or negative association with that statement. It's just a fact. It's body neutrality. So that's something that I think could be an action step if you feel like you're on tier 3 or tier 2 of the body confidence. Okay, moving on to the next part of the yes list, focusing on what makes you you. Something that really helps with body confidence is just feeling more confident in who you are generally, because it takes away the focus from how you look and puts the focus on what's actually interesting about you. If you think about the people in your life that you've chosen to be around, like your friends or maybe colleagues, the way they look doesn't have anything to do with your relationship with them. It's actually things like, are they funny? Do you get on with them? Are they caring? Are they a nice person? The things that make them them. And actually, if you were able to think about yourself with that same focus, it would help you to remove all of that meaning and focus and energy that you're putting onto how you look. And then thirdly, self-love. So I'm not talking about in terms of body positivity, I'm talking about just loving yourself, your body and your personality and every single part of you, that helps with your body confidence in turn, because again, we're taking the focus away from how you look to who you are. So the no list for body confidence is beauty standards. I despise beauty standards. Now living in Asia, I've realised just how ridiculous beauty standards are, because they're so subjective and they're different all over the world, you know. When I first came to Indonesia, everybody kept commenting on my nose. And they were like, your nose is so thin. I was like, it's just a normal nose, what are you on about? And basically in Asia, they believe that having a slim or slender nose, well, in this part of Asia, is beautiful. And I just thought, wow, that's bizarre, you know. And when I told them about, you know, the beauty standards that we have in the UK, they were also confused. And it just showed me how ridiculous and nonsensical beauty standards are. Everything is very much subjective. So if you're spending so much time and energy around this thing that like changes over time, changes with generations, and changes depending on where you are in the world, what a waste of time. We also want to say no to punishment. So any kind of guilt around activity, nutrition, diet, exercise, these things that we say that we don't even intend to be sort of harsh to ourselves. But the one thing that really kind of grates on me is when I hear people say, oh, I'll go to the gym and then I can have a cake later. You know, that kind of thing where it's like you're giving yourself a reward or a punishment, when actually, you know, you can have a cake. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to punish yourself. Actually, exercise and diet are things that can be enjoyed without any negativity, without any punishments. And so removing those kind of thoughts and behaviours from your lifestyle, that is something that I love to work with clients on as well, to removing all of those kind of rules and restrictions and punishments, and returning to intuition and what makes you feel good and what you like. And then comparison, of course. Comparison has to be on the no list. I think we could probably put comparison on the no list for every single pillar, to be honest. But comparison particularly does not help us when it comes to body confidence, because we're surrounded with so many images in the media of people looking a certain way. And it's hard to not compare yourself. You know, again, like I said, don't beat yourself up if you feel like you've actually engaged in any of these behaviours. It's totally normal to. But we want to try and move away from comparison, and we do that in a few different ways. Feeling more sure in yourself, also putting boundaries on certain behaviours as well, so that we're not exposed to so many comparison triggers, and a few more different ways as well, which is something that I work with in my coaching service. Okay, so let's think about your action step, thinking about firstly where you are on the tier system, and secondly considering the yes and no list. Do you think there's anything that you could do from today that would help you move up the tier system in body confidence? Let me know in the yes, let's eat all the cake, Dominique. I love that. Yeah, let me know in the comments, or send me a message later with your action step, because I'm happy to hold you accountable to it as well. Action doesn't happen unless you have accountability a lot of the time. And also, action steps do not work out if they're too big and overwhelming. So just think about what could be the first thing that you do in terms of yes or no, things that you could do more of or less of in order to help your body confidence. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of my tea. Let's move on to the second pillar of confidence, which is identity confidence. Thinking about what makes you you. I know that, you know, I definitely had a strong identity crisis in my, you know, sort of early 20s, probably going up to mid-20s as well, if I'm completely honest, and thinking about who I was, what I wanted in life, what my purpose was. Big existential crisis vibes. So in terms of the tier system, let's go through them. Tier 3, if you're in tier 3 of identity crisis, then you might be having an existential crisis. You might be asking yourself certain questions like, what am I doing with my life? What do I truly enjoy? What do I want for my future? Is this the right path for me? Also things like not trusting your intuition. Do you find it difficult to make decisions? You're constantly maybe looking online for like different jobs. You're questioning whether you still want to be in your relationship or not, or if you're single, you're like, do I want to be in a relationship? I think I do, but there's a lot of confusion. Generally, a lot of confusion and questions. Tier 2 would be you have down days and moments of this existential crisis mode, and then you have certain days where things fall into place and you feel like you have a bit of clarity, so a bit of a roller coaster up and down. And tier 1 would be that you feel quite sure of yourself and quite calm and content in like who you are and what makes you you uniquely. So I'd love to know where you think you fall in terms of identity confidence. Okay, so moving on, this is the yes and no list for identity confidence. So over on the yes side, what we want more of in terms of feeling confident in our identities, we want to have strong personal values. Literally to be able to say off the top of your head a list of 3 to 5 personal values that are the foundations of you. If you feel like it's difficult for you to do that, or like your personal values kind of chop and change quite a bit, that might be a sign that, you know, identity is something that's been a little bit shaky for you. And that's okay. But this is, again, something that we can work on. Personal values are, it's possible, you know, to find out what your personal values are. It just needs to be drawn out with a bit of introspection and a bit of identity work. Secondly, knowing your purpose. I'm not saying like we need to have all the answers, because your answers do change as you grow and you mature and you have different experiences. But let me ask you, do you feel fulfilled right now? Do you feel fulfilled in what you're doing and how you're spending your time, the people you're around, the impact that you're making on the world? I'm not saying, again, like you have to have like the most successful career, or that you have to have absolutely all the answers and have a 5-year plan. I'm actually against that kind of phrase of 5-year plan, because I think flexibility is where we experiment, and that's where we find out more about ourselves as we go along. But having a sense of purpose in what you're doing, if you've ever heard of the term ikigai, this is something that I work on with clients a lot because I love the ikigai. Ikigai is basically a Japanese phrase. There's a whole long story about ikigai, but it really means like your reason for waking up in the morning. That's kind of the rough translation. So if you feel sure of that, that's amazing. If you're not so sure, then it's something that you can figure out. I know, because I've helped a lot of people do it and I've done it myself. So don't worry, there is hope. And then finally, mind connection. And what I mean by that is, firstly, having some time each day to slow down and just be with yourself. Secondly, like emotional intelligence, emotional awareness of how you're feeling and therefore what you need to do to best support yourself. But on a deeper level, having some kind of connection to your subconscious mind, which often does just happen through mindfulness or journaling or meditation, or basically any time when you allow yourself to slow down, which is where mindful confidence comes in, because when we have that habit of slowing down and just being and noticing how we feel and what we're thinking and the beliefs that we're holding about ourselves, that's when we start to feel stronger in our identity. And then on the no list, what we want less of for identity confidence is expectations. Hate expectations. From yourself or from other people. You know, I've worked with so many clients who have had the most outrageous expectations placed on them from a very young age, or on themselves from a very young age, you know, and I think a lot of it comes from fear and wanting things to be perfect so that there is an element of control. But expectations often mean that we're missing what's right in front of us and like stepping away from what really fulfills us because we expected things to go a certain controlled way. When we step away and allow that flexibility, that's when we often learn more about ourselves. busyness, I guess, just the antidote of that mind connection, really. So when we're constantly trying to find things to do and not allowing ourselves to be, you know, when you've done all the things on your to-do list and you sit down and like, oh, I'll just do that one more thing. You know, I think sometimes we feel almost afraid to just be with ourselves because who knows what kind of thoughts we'll have. And there is a lot of glamorizing busyness, isn't there, in our society? So busyness is almost like the enemy of identity because when we don't have that time just by ourselves to form that relationship with ourselves, it's very, very difficult to have that ongoing connection to ourselves. And then finally, fitting the mold. So I suppose this does relate to expectations as well, but just doing what other people are doing for the sake of it and not stepping out of the comfort zone. You know, the comfort zone is really lovely. We all love it. Of course I love it. But I also know it's kind of my enemy at the same time, because if I'd stayed in the comfort zone my whole life, I definitely wouldn't be living in Bali. I definitely wouldn't have my own business. And those are the things that I love most about my life now. So I think fitting the mold and doing, you know, just what everybody else is doing can feel like the only option sometimes. And just getting to know yourself and thinking about what your purpose is, who you are at the core, who you are authentically, can actually give you permission to step outside the mold. Okay, so considering where you are on the tier, on the cake, and the yes and no list, what do you think could be an action step that you take towards feeling more confident in your identity from today? So, Victoria, body neutrality sounds interesting. Yes, I love it. It is very, very interesting. Yeah. Okay, and Dominic said, for identity, I'm definitely tier 3. Interesting. Yeah, but I think a lot of people are, Dominic. I don't think you're alone there, honestly. So yeah, I'd love to know. But definitely write it down if you don't want to share it. Write down what you think a good action step could be to take towards feeling more confident in your identity, just based on what I've kind of spoken about. Even if you don't know the direct action to take, note down just some key phrases or notes around what you think, what you pinpoint, like you resonate most with from what I've just spoken about. Okay, moving on to social confidence, which is something that I find very interesting because I have experienced a lot of social anxiety growing up, and so it's a really interesting topic for me. I didn't know that, by the way, until about 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, that's what it was. So let's talk about social confidence. Tier 3 would describe you if you feel like there are always things that you wish you could say in social situations, but just don't come out. Like maybe you replay things later and you're like, oh, I wish I'd said that. Or you just feel very uncomfortable and like you can't be completely yourself in certain social situations, or maybe all social situations. It could also mean that like in bigger crowds of people that you don't feel great, or maybe even just one-to-one with people, like you just feel like you can't find your person or your people where you can truly be yourself. Tier 2 would describe anybody who feels unconfident or less confident in certain social situations. So for me, talking in a big group of people, or like if I was in like a lecture hall, that would be very nerve-wracking for me. But I know that in a smaller group of people that I feel more confident. But for some people, it's the other way around. So don't use that example as like something that you should follow, because everyone's totally unique with this. So think about your own experiences of social confidence. Also, things might have changed since the pandemic started as well. You might feel less confident in social situations since you've been out of practice, you know. And tier 1 would be somebody who feels pretty much confident in all social situations. Like you feel like you can be authentic, like you can say what you want, like you can be outspoken if you need to, and like put your point across. There's no kind of holdbacks that you can really pinpoint, even though there might be the odd day where you feel less so. Okay, cool. thinking about the yes and no list for social confidence, things we want more of is giving yourself opportunities to practice. So if you've seen my IGTVs that I uploaded this week on Instagram, you have seen that a lot of confidence just comes through like giving yourself opportunities to practice things. So giving yourself evidence that you can do things. So for example, if I talk about myself speaking in a lecture hall, which is like, if I really wanted to work on that goal, like, to be honest, it's not really relevant to my life, but if it was something that was, I would then actually push myself, even probably the first time it would feel terrifying to do so, but build up to talking in front of, 1,000 people, let's say. My goal is there. I'm going to work in baby steps and give myself opportunities to do it. Doesn't mean that I go straight away and do that, because actually that could be a really negative experience. We want to kind of nurture ourselves and give ourselves the right kind of opportunities. So if you're, for example, feeling anxious about talking to a certain person that you don't feel like you have like much in common with, and it's always a bit awkward and you just don't look forward to those interactions, could you give yourself opportunities to practice talking to like a lot of different people, so that you have more conversational skills practice, that you have more conversation starters to begin with, or like more stories to tell? Are there opportunities you can give yourself that just help you in that certain social situation? Again, it totally is just down to what you feel more or less comfortable with. So knowing your thresholds too. I think this is really important, with knowing like how you can push yourself and give yourself opportunities, because it's totally okay for you to be a shy person. It's okay for you to not want to be the center of attention at a party, That's what I'm kind of getting at with all of these things. Like, you might just be the type of person who gets on better with people when you have a one-to-one deep conversation. That's just your personality. And therefore, we don't need to change that. We need to embrace it, and we need to know what your thresholds are. If, for example, you had a job where you needed to speak to lots of different people and it was really holding you back, and that confidence area was, preventing you from feeling more fulfilled, then that would be a goal to consider. But are you just happy talking to less people, or talking to certain people that you trust? Just knowing your thresholds and what you actually want to change versus what you just want to embrace and accept about yourself. And then thirdly, boundaries. So this is kind of relating to, I guess, a different side of social confidence, which is, with our relationships. Boundaries is a big part of the work that I do as a coach, because a lot of the time, this is where our social situations and our social relationships, run into trouble, to be honest. When we're not able to communicate what we need from other people, when we're kind of pushed and we're asked too much of. And boundaries comes with confidence. It's really difficult. It feels impossible, actually, when you first set a boundary. You're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm going to say this to this person and communicate this. But it does just come with practice and with the right strategies too. It doesn't have to be big and scary as it seems. Okay, and the no list, things that we do not want or we want less of. Inner quiet girl. And what I mean by this is, I said like embrace yourself and who you are, but are there any stories you're telling yourself about who you are? So I've always had this, I guess this example is really just me projecting a little bit, but I know that a lot of you will be able to resonate with this. So all my life, I've been a very sensible student at school, and the quiet girl. That's the kind of idea of who I am that I've held about myself, when I'm actually not a quiet girl. I can be sensible and I can be kind and considerate, and I can listen really well to people, but I can also say my opinion when it's needed, and I can be loud and I can be hyper if I want to. And so holding on to that narrative of mine, I think really prevented me from giving myself opportunities in life. That inner quiet girl that I thought of myself as, and that identity that I held about myself, was stopping me from feeling confident in social situations. I was like, well, I'm just the kind of girl who sits quietly and listens. And I think just that narrative can be something, if we hold on to it too tightly, it can really prevent us from feeling confident. Okay, so then high expectations. So expectations that you hold about yourself in terms of social situations. Do you feel like you always have to be caring? Do you always have to help other people? Do you always have to be saying yes to people? This does relate to boundaries hugely. So can you remove some of those expectations that you're holding for yourself? Can you just say, look, I just want to be authentic. I just want to create a connection with you that feels genuine, just based on who you truly are and the kind of people that you want to be around. And then finally, the no list. We want to say putting yourself last. We want to say no to putting yourself last, because this idea that putting yourself first and self-care, and also in terms of social boundaries as well, saying, oh, actually, I was going to have a bubble bath tonight, but since you've asked, okay, I will go and do that thing for you. I think when it comes to thinking about boundaries and how we relate to others, we really need to put ourselves first. Okay, so then going back to action steps, is there anything that you can think of from the yes and no list that you would like to put into action? So it might be relating to boundaries, it might be relating to the narratives and the identity that you've told yourself. It might be about giving yourself the right opportunities, or just accepting that you're the type of person who isn't ever going to feel comfortable in that situation, or you thrive in certain situations rather than others. Okay. I'm just checking the comments here. Less busyness for sure. Dominique said, high expectations in social situations. I feel I always need to come across fun and interesting. Yeah, and I actually understand that. I really do, because I think I felt that same way for a long time when I had that inner quiet girl narrative that I was speaking about. Oh, I wish I could be the life and centre of the party. And sometimes that need and that desire really held me back from just being authentic. If I had taken the pressure off, I might have cracked a joke. Okay, wonderful. So, the final pillar, have another tea break, little sip, is skills, or maybe let's say ability. And of course, this is going to hugely relate to career. And this is often where we feel least confident in terms of our career and our career projection. But it can also relate to loads of different things, like your personal skills. And I guess it could relate to a lot of the different pillars, really, but even you as a parent, you as a friend, you being organised, having your stuff together, loads of different things skills can relate to, can't they? So if you are in tier 3, you might be someone who often doubts your ability. You say things to yourself like, oh, it's not good enough, it will never be good enough. You redo things a lot because you get disappointed with your first try. You don't like to brag about your achievements because you feel embarrassed about certain things. And also maybe you seek feedback from others as well in terms of the things that you're doing in order to feel good about them, rather than just genuinely feeling good about them yourself. Tier 2 would relate to somebody who has days where they feel neutral or okay about their skills and abilities. Maybe they're not pushing themselves to their fullest capacity because it feels a bit too scary to extend their skills and learn more things. And there are definitely days where you dip into tier 3 where you feel, oh, that was rubbish, I wish I'd done better, I'm not good enough, etc. And tier 1 would be somebody who I describe as having a growth mindset. So no matter what you do, you feel like you can handle it. You might not have the skills right now, but you can learn the skills eventually. You're very open to trying new things, and you have a sense of inner confidence generally that helps you to learn and to do things. Okay, so yes list for skills confidence is things we want more of. The growth mindset, like I just mentioned. So this literally just describes somebody who is open to trying new things. Maybe you don't know for sure that you're going to be good at something, but you have this inner confidence that says, I'm just going to try. What's the harm in trying? Somebody without a growth mindset would probably say, a fixed mindset, actually, that's a technical term, would say I'll never be good at that, I'm not even going to try. So these are the two kind of sides of the coin. A growth mindset is what we want, because think of all the things you didn't know 5 years ago, you know, these things that we like just happen to know over time, and the skills that we acquire over time. Like, we've all had to shift throughout these last couple of years and learn new things. And you have for your career, you have for your relationships, and loads of different life events. And we're always learning. So we want more of this growth mindset, of this like ability to try at least. We want more self-trust. So this is slightly separate to the growth mindset, I suppose, because it's also just having trust in yourself that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. Yeah, you might fail, but that's fine. You know, failure just means, okay, we start again and we try something different. And having that self-trust comes from core confidence. So it relates again to different pillars, because it's having that confidence in yourself to pick yourself back up and know that you can find the answer. Okay, detachment from worth. Often when I start working with people and we talk about confidence, they very much pin their confidence to the things that they can do. A lot of their identity is do. So I say, okay, so tell me who you are. And they're like, well, I'm a teacher and I knit, and, you know, and all the things that they do. And I'm like, yeah, but who are you? You know, give me some adjectives. And it's like they're just listing verbs and actions. And sometimes this focus on do can be really harmful, because it means that when we can't do something, or when things go wrong, because things that we do don't always go right, that we feel worthless, and that we feel like there's no part of our identity left. And often when I've worked with mums, actually, like new mums, they often experience this because they've come, you know, gone on maternity leave and they've separated from their job and their career. And now they're like, I'm trying to navigate this identity of like not doing and just being, and I'm being there for someone, you know, it's totally different. So what we want is, we always want to have that sense of being and who we are, and detaching from the doing. Because that means that no matter what happens, we always have ourselves to fall back on, no matter what we're doing. Okay, the no list, we want to say no, again, to comparison. I told you that this could be on the no list for literally everything. But I think comparison in terms of skills can be particularly crippling. I know that when I started my business, I was always looking to the people that I admire and adore, and I still do admire and adore them, but I was using them as a really sort of negative, in a really horrible way to myself, you know, like, oh, you'll never accomplish what she's accomplished, and look, she's so much better at doing that. It's like, well, yeah, she's been doing it for 10 years, love. You know, you can't do it after 2 months at the same standard as her. So comparison is, again, kind of similar to like beauty standards, because it's so subjective. It's kind of nonsensical. It's such a waste of time, because your skills are always improving and always growing. And so what is the point in wasting your time thinking about what somebody can do better than you? You know, just get on with like doing the thing. Then inner critic. So I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase. I'm sure you have. It's very well known, isn't it? Like having that voice inside that tells you that what you're doing isn't good enough. It relates to perfectionism. It relates to fear of rejection. So many things. I could do a whole workshop on the inner critic, to be honest, but we don't want to say like no to our inner critic, but we want to stop listening to it as much. We want it to be quieter in our minds, and we can do that by, again, detaching from this sense of worth to our skill, but also like comforting our inner critic and letting them know like there's more to me than what I can do. It's okay. And then finally, imposter syndrome, which is the feeling that like you're going to get caught out, like you shouldn't be this successful at what you're doing, or you don't deserve to be in the role that you're in, or whatever you're doing. And this is something, again, that I help so many people do, because everybody experiences it, especially if you're starting something new, or you've challenged yourself, or you've taken on something that feels a little outside your comfort zone. Little old imposter syndrome will pop up. And again, such a waste of our time and energy, and it does not help us at all. So we want to say, no. Okay, so thinking about your tier system, and the yes and no list for skills confidence. I do think that skills confidence seems to be the thing that most people can relate to because of imposter syndrome, because, you know, there can be like parameters of success in terms of skills, it can be easier for comparison to pop up. So I'd love to know what you felt you could resonate with from those lists and where you think your action step could be in the area of. So yeah, again, just leave me a message with all of your action steps at the end. I'd love to hear about them. So looking at your action steps, you might have 1, you might have 4, you might have 10. It's all good. But what action step can be prioritized? So if you were at tier 3 in any of those pillars, if you were like way down here on one of the tiers, maybe that's an action step that you can prioritize because it seems to be the thing that you need the most support with in feeling confident. If you were at tier 1, maybe it doesn't feel like it is as urgent or important to work on right now, and that's okay. So think about what feels most urgent, what feels most important right now. Okay, just checking the comments. I'm sorry if you've left me a comment and I can't see. I will see in a few minutes. So, as I mentioned at the start, we have to talk about fear, because fear is literally the catalyst for all of the things that I've just talked about, pretty much. In terms of all the pillars of confidence, fear comes into everything. The fear of rejection, the fear of risk, the fear of not doing something to the right standard. It all relates to negativity. It all relates to you not feeling courageous enough because of the consequences that might come. This is how our mind works in terms of fear. There are things that we know for sure, like there are definitely going to be consequences if you jump off of a cliff, for example, or if you ride a motorbike really, really fast down a main road. Like that, you know for sure is risky. But there are also things that you assume to be true about those consequences. So, for example, if I talk about body confidence, if I wear a bikini to the beach, people are going to laugh at me. I don't know that. Even if people are laughing, I don't know that they're laughing at me. You know, it's all assumption, and it's all this fear of the assumption that's stopping us from doing things, from enjoying our life. So these assumptions and this information that our brain tries to gather for us is what a lot of our time and energy is wasted on in terms of confidence. So talking about that research that I mentioned before, 90% of my community, including you if you did take any of those questionnaires that I put out at the start of the year, you doubt your ability to reach your goals. And I wonder how much of that is based on assumption or based on the truth. You know, even things when I talk to clients about limiting beliefs and I'm like, let's dig into that limiting belief. Like, what's the evidence for that? And they're like, well, for sure, I know that I'm not going to get, let's say they want to start a business, for sure, I'm never going to get a customer. And I'm like, that is an assumption. You think of it as being a fact, 100%, but that is an assumption, you know? So it's so hard. It gets so blurred in our mind with what's real and what's not. And that's where fear can be so all-consuming when we feel anxious about lots of different areas of our life and we feel like we're trapped or stuck in the comfort zone. It's because the assumption fear has taken over and our creativity and our imagination with fear is running wild. And also, there was a score for 8 out of 10 of overthinking. And that doesn't surprise me either because we've had a lot of time to think over the last couple of years, haven't we? So thinking about what could go wrong is something that our mind loves to do to keep us safe. So let's consider, you know, maybe even right now when I'm asking you about action steps, that could be when your fear starts to creep in. You know, when you think about, okay, I want to work, for example, on my personal values, and even thinking about that and feeling like a stronger, more confident person, there could be a small part of you that feels a bit like, oh gosh, you know, a bit avoidant almost. Or if you're thinking about goals or like a dream life aspiration, there's that element of like hold back, you know, whether it's anxiety or just genuine like freezing out of fear. I want you to ask yourself, why am I scared? Because this is a genuine risk, or because I perceive this to be risky? You might even need to ask someone, because sometimes it's so hard to see out of our own perception, you know. Is this a genuine risk of mine? Is this actually going to put me in a bad situation? Or do I just not know? And I'm just assuming, I'm trying to make up the information with what I have. Okay, so moving on, I want to talk about fear in terms of how we then move on to action steps and we make it all work for us. So feelings, beliefs, and actions. This is basically the trio of what makes you you. What, you know, gives you opportunity in life. What helps you to move forward. What helps you make decisions. What helps you to live, do anything pretty much. And if we have a fear-led life, like fear feels like it's controlling a lot of the pillars that I've mentioned, and a lot of the no list has been popping up for you, it might mean that fear is kind of the driving force at the moment in terms of your feelings, your beliefs and actions. So if you have fear predominantly in your feelings and avoid and worry and concern, that might mean that your beliefs are supporting those feelings. So your beliefs are saying, oh, if I do that, this bad thing's going to happen. I'm not good enough to do that. You might have all these beliefs that do not support you in feeling fulfilled and happy. They support you in staying very, very small and staying very much where you are, because it's scary to move away from that. And therefore, your actions will be to stay small and to say no to things and to accept, relationships that don't make you feel good, or not putting boundaries into place, or saying yes to anything to make other people happy. Whatever it is, if fear is the driving force here, it's like an ongoing cycle until it's broken. And so how can we break the pattern of fear and the cycle? Because it just gets stronger and stronger. The stronger your beliefs get, the stronger your actions get, or maybe the smaller your actions get and the stronger the feelings get. So how can we actually recognize fear and allow it to pass? Because like I mentioned, I will still feel nervous. I will still feel fearful of the things that put me outside my comfort zone. Going back to that example of like talking in front of a lecture hall, I'll absolutely be crapping my pants. Like, I'm not going to beat around the bush and say, yeah, I'm really confident I can go and do that. Like, no, no, I can't. So I feel like I can't. I feel absolutely sick to the bone. Like, I feel like I really can't do it. Like, physically, I'm shaking probably at that point. Walking up to the front of the stage and getting my notes out, like shaking my hands. But do you know what's going to help me push past it? The fact that I am in control of my emotions and my beliefs. So here's how it works. We feel doubtful of ourselves. We feel the fear kick in, usually when we're pushing ourselves out of the comfort zone. So whether it is doing something that feels good to you, like you're excited about it, but you also know it's not normal for you to do it. So that's when the fear starts popping up. You're doubtful of yourself. But you might be able to regain control, right? You might be able to say, I'm going to do it. It's okay. I'm going to push myself. I'm just doing it. I'm doing it. Then fear often comes back twofold. So what happens when I work with clients is, like, we have a goal and we get to the point of, like, they feel like ready to do it, and they do it and they're like, oh my God, I've just done it. Oh my God, I feel even worse. I can't believe I've just done it. That vulnerability can feel even worse than the initial fear, because you think, oh my goodness, what have I done? It's like a vulnerability hangover after you've done the thing. And fear is still very much present. Like, you had 5 seconds of courage, but you still feel terrified to do it. At that point, you have to allow your emotions to be there. I think when we try and push past the fear and we're like, it's not there, it's fine, everything's okay, that's when it can just come back later. So throughout all of these, like, first 3 steps, it's like noticing that the fear is there, but still doing it and comforting yourself along the way. So as I would be, hypothetically walking up to the lecture hall stage, I'd be saying, you can survive. You're not going to die. Like, it's scary. People might judge you, and that's fine, And I recognise that fear is here. Thanks, fear, for helping me out. I know you're just trying to, protect me, but I've got this. I'm going to enjoy this. It's going to be great. It's going to be a real growth experience for me. And, like, literally having that conversation with yourself. I'm allowing my fear to be there, but I'm also telling my fear, that it's okay. Like, I'm giving it that reassurance that it needs, it's okay. And at that point, that's when we can push past the fear and we can do the thing that feels impossible. So it's all about not like pushing it to one side, it's about recognizing it and then allowing it to pass. Because the beautiful thing about fear is it's never like long term. You know, think about something you were terrified of as a child. It comes and goes. Even with like phobias that are like chronic, there are moments when you feel the fear, right? When like you're exposed to the stimulus or whatever that you're scared of, and then it reduces. You're not like constantly in panic mode about it. It reduces over time, like any emotion does, and you can push past it. You are in control. So if we were to think about this again in terms of confidence being the main drive and like that relationship with yourself and that reassurance you can give yourself, think about the different feelings. Like, so we go from feeling fearful predominantly to feeling reassured and in control and comfortable and probably like peaceful as well. And the beliefs that we'd hold about ourselves would be like, okay, I know that I'm scared, but I know that I can do this too. And having those supportive beliefs, those loving, caring beliefs. And think about if you had the combination of the two, what actions would come from that? What opportunities do you think that you could say yes to based on that? What could you do more of? Where would your life be if you were able to lead with confidence rather than fear? So if we're able to break it down, this is all we have to do in terms of confidence, because often we think of the whole staircase as our goal, right? So if, for example, I'm thinking about, again, the lecture hall goal, and I'm thinking, you know, that is my goal to like maybe do a TED talk. Oh my goodness, that'd be recorded and it'd be viral around the world as well. That'd be like 10 times more terrifying for me. That is my end goal. If I focused on that goal only, there's no way that I would do that. I'd be so fearful from the get-go that I would be stuck. I'd be paralyzed with fear. So what I can do to kind of encourage my confidence to grow is just think about the first step. If I break down the behavior, psychology geek coming out here, if I break down the behavior to the first baby step, it could be writing out a script. It could be saying out a lecture to my best friend. It could be recording myself on my laptop. The first baby step is all you have to think about right now in order to start moving your trio of behavior and life from fear to confidence. It's just breaking it down to the first baby step. Then it's not overwhelming, it's manageable, it's tangible, and you can do it. So I know that I've mentioned throughout this workshop about coaching and the work that I do in my one-to-one coaching packages. I have some availability coming up starting at the beginning of October for Authentically You, which is my signature coaching program. It's 14 weeks long where you get to know yourself truly, develop a genuine self-confidence, practice self-compassion, take gentle action with fierce support. And it's your path to freedom. You know, anything that you're thinking that you want for yourself in life that you don't think is achievable, my goal is to help you to believe it's possible, because it is. And all of this, all of the 4 pillars of confidence, all of the tiers, all of the things that I've spoken about in terms of what I want you to be doing more and less of, these are all things that I cover within Authentically You. How do we do that? Well, there are 7 coaching sessions. They're video calls where we speak to each other one-to-one. We take a deep dive into who you are and get to know who you are at the core. You know, talking about all of those parts of identity. Those are things that we cover in so much detail, so you have such a good sense of yourself. Then we have weekly catch-up messages to kind of talk about the action steps that we might have been going through in our coaching sessions. And also you have a private online client portal with a resource library. So there are resources and there's kind of homework, there's yoga, there's meditation that I send to you if that's something that you're into, all to support you in this goal of feeling your authentic self. And also as a one-to-one client of mine, you have access to my Kambali membership too. So here is what some of my wonderful one-to-one clients have said about their experience with Authentically You. Laura said, I'm unable to put, oh hang on, let me just move it out of the way. I'm unable to put into words the impact that Laura's coaching has had on my life. Rachel said, the main thing that has changed since working with Laura is my day-to-day mindset. I cannot explain how different I feel waking up now. I feel as though a weight has been lifted. And Megan said, through working with Laura, I have learned to trust my decisions. I now listen to what I need on a daily basis, which makes me feel more fulfilled and content. Laura was fantastically supportive throughout my whole coaching journey. Love it. And thank you so much to these clients for those kind words as well. It's so, so lovely to hear about the results that they received over that, that time together. It really makes this job so fulfilling to me. And I'm just so pleased for them. So for anybody who's watching this, or if you're watching on the replay too, I have an exclusive special offer for you. If you're watching this, you're exactly the type of person that I want to work with, because you being here shows me that you're committed to yourself and your confidence and knowing your true authentic self. So for you guys only, I'm offering for a special price exclusively £129 per month. If you'd like to know more about how payment works, or more about how to go about coaching, how it all works in general, then you can send me a message through social media, head to my website, or if you want to speak face-to-face to me, you can click this button on my Instagram page, which says book now, and we can book in a free, just really casual video chat. I've just called it a free chit chat because that's genuinely what it is. It's just having a talk about where you are right now and whether Authentically You is right for you or not. I'm very honest. I've even said to a couple of you who I know are watching that I'm happy to signpost you to other places that I feel like you'd be better supported, maybe with like therapy or working with somebody who I know, from my own community in the coaching world might be able to suit you better. But if anything that I've spoken about today has resonated with you, if you enjoy that style of coaching that I've mentioned, that's all about gently being compassionate to yourself and really returning to who you are rather than pushing forwards and striving, then I would love for you to get in touch, and it would be wonderful to have a chat with you. So that is it, guys. Thank you so much, so much for joining me for this workshop today. Let me know, send me a message and give me some kind of notes that you've taken. Tell me about the tiers, tell me about any of the pillars that you particularly resonated with and feel like you'd like to work on. Again, there's no strings attached, like just because you're messaging me doesn't mean that I want you to work with me, it's fine. But if you were here watching this, I'd love to know, because I love talking about this topic. This is my jam, this is like my passion in life. So I'm always happy to have conversations on Messenger about this. So thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're watching the replay, depending on what the time is, have a wonderful rest of the day too. And hopefully we will speak soon in the DMs. Bye.